With us right now is Senator Dave McCormick. Let's talk about what's happening today. On Wednesday, they call it Liberation Day, where we're going to have reciprocal tariffs with everyone. I mean, things is really unbalanced, like India, 40% tariff on cars coming into India. How's that going to happen? You know, some of the imbalances with lumber and Canada, but it's all happening at once. Here's what Donald Trump said last night. The audio's not great, but he said on Air Force One, cut one.
The tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades. They ripped us off like no country's ever been ripped off in history. And we're going to be much nicer than they were to us, but it's substantial money for the country, nevertheless.
So how do you see it? I mean, you do have your years of Bridgewater.
Yeah.
This is what you were doing. You're very tapped into the international business.
Yeah. Well, first, I try to start with, anxiety. Uncertainty is the worst thing you want as a business person. You don't want uncertainty. You want as much certainty as possible so you can make your bets. And the reason the markets are so roiled right now is that there's uncertainty. But when I talk to CEOs, I try to say, well, let's start with the certainty. There's uncertainty, but let's start with the certainty. The certainty is the biggest deregulation in 50 years. The certainty is unlocking energy and energy dominance. The certainty is $2 trillion of new investment in the United States. And the certainty is we're going to get the tax cut extensions made permanent or certainly extended. Those are huge sources of uncertainty. And in that backdrop, there's also the uncertainty of what the tariffs will do. The moment the tariffs come out, then people can start to make decisions on what they're actually going to do. I'm supportive of what the president's trying to do in the following sense. I think reciprocal tariffs that get a fair deal for the American worker, a fair deal for American businesses are absolutely necessary.
Where's the greatest imbalance in Dave McCormick's mind?
I think the greatest imbalance is probably around manufacturing businesses, because what happens is they're subsidized in China and other places. They don't actually have the same cost of capital as U.S. companies because they get federal support. The Chinese give them federal support.
And they also don't get paid as much.
So that's in particular where I think we want to bring home that manufacturing. The steel tariffs, the aluminum tariffs are meant to level the playing field. I think that's the area that we have probably the biggest imbalances. The area where I think we have to be careful to make sure we have a capability on our shores, independent of what the other side's doing, is semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. We learned during COVID that we're dependent on other countries for the large majority of semiconductors.
And nothing's been done about it.
Well, nothing's been done yet, but I think you're going to see a lot more under.
And the way you do that is don't say, hey, I command you to come back. What you do is say, make it make financial sense to come back. So if most of our pharmaceuticals are in China, and I think they are, if you say a 25% tariff on everything that comes in, so then that company's got to tell their shareholders that now it's not financially rewarding for us to continue this situation. In theory, they'll bring it back. Now, you tell me the reality. You know these people on these boards. Will they do that?
They will do it. I think they will do it and are starting to do it. I mean, already you've seen a huge movement out of China, but I think you're going to see more and more sourcing.
And China brought that on themselves.
Absolutely. Totally unfair. What President Trump's saying about the post-World War II period, we gave unbelievably favorable terms to Europe and Japan to help them lift their economies after a horrible war that devastated them. But those rules of the road have been in place and stayed in place for 70 years, and they got to change.
So Sean Fain, it's so interesting the way your party is so different now. You have Sean Fain, who's upset that the president got rid of unions for civil rights workers, for civil workers. Anyone working for the federal government was unionized. The president said that's no longer allowed. I'm not sure if that's going to hold up in court. I hope so. But here Sean Fain is not liking that, but he's loving the fact that we're having these tariffs and telling the car companies, if you make your car outside the country, 25% tariff. Here's what he said is the facts, cut 19.
We've seen over 90,000 manufacturing facilities leave the United States. We've seen in the big three alone in the last 20 plus years, 65 plants have closed. And so, look, tariffs aren't the total solution. Tariffs are a tool in the toolbox to get these companies to do the right thing, and the intent behind it is to bring jobs back here and invest in the American workers. If they're going to bring jobs back here, they need to be life-sustaining jobs where people can make a good wage, a living wage.
And they would, but the problem is, too, with the union workers, that they also made things hard on their own companies because the the job demands that they have made other companies go, listen, we're better off leaving the country without a union or going to the South where there is no union.
Yeah, I think what you saw, the coalition that President Trump won with in Pennsylvania and I won with, was the trade unions were on the rank and file, not at the national level. They were with Harris and Casey, but in the rank and file, they were with President Trump and me, probably 2/3 to 1/3. It was quite remarkable. These are welders and electricians and pipe fitters and steam fitters. And the reason is, the simple reason is the commitment to jobs. And the commitment to jobs, it comes in lots of forms. It comes in tariffs because it makes a level playing field, but it comes in energy dominance, unlocking energy. It comes in the deregulation agenda. It comes in the support for skilled workers. Not everybody needs to go to college to live the American dream. It's a comprehensive set of things. So I agree with what he just said about tariffs are just one tool in the toolbox.
Right.
There's got to be a commitment to making sure that America, and in my case, Pennsylvania, is a manufacturing powerhouse. Energy is a critical part of that. Skills is a critical part of that. Deregulation is a critical part of that, too.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that number. 90,000 manufacturing facilities have left since NAFTA.
Well, a lot of these are small mom and pop places that create the jobs. 80% of the jobs come from small businesses.
By reducing waste and fraud, we'll essentially make the economy more efficient, and we'll shift people resources from the government to the private sector. And that will result in an increase in the output of goods and services. And so the average standard of living will therefore rise.
So that's a little from Elon Musk. He was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, trying to make sure that this judge decision, this judge vote on Tuesday, goes the right direction in his terms, because he believes that they're going to, if the left gets in there, they're going to have the majority in the judiciary in Wisconsin, and they're going to gerrymander at least 3 Republican seats out, and it'll probably cost them the majority. That's what's at stake on Tuesday. Senator Dave McCormick knows all about that in Pennsylvania. Senator, your thoughts first about what Musk was saying about what he's trying to do in there. He's cutting out waste and fraud, and he's finding system issues and contracts that are dead, and no accountability about invoices coming in and going out because it's not their money. Yeah. He's changing the whole mindset.
Yeah, no, I think what the president and Elon are doing here is a great service to the American people. But you have to start with the situation. $34 trillion of debt, $1 trillion of interest payments, $2 trillion deficit a year. We bring in $4 trillion in taxes and we spend $6 trillion. You and I could never run our households like this. It got much worse under Biden. We have no choice. We have to rein in the government, rein in the spending. The bureaucracy is out of control. What DOGE is doing is it's creating transparency and focus. Transparency on the waste and focus on where to reduce the cost. The Government Accountability Office, which is a bipartisan thing, estimates $500 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse.
What could they do to change the perception of what they're doing? Bret Baier's show, which is on Fox Nation right now, going a long way in doing that. These CEOs like you, very successful in business, trying to help out the government for 6 months.
Yeah,
what could they do to change it?
Well, I think what you just said, it's the more transparency, the more they get out and describe what they're finding and what they're doing, the more you see that these are people that are trying to serve. They're working around the clock to serve the public good,
basically.
Right? To serve the public good. Elon Musk is doing this to serve the public good. And I also want to be clear, and they said this, but just 2 things. One, the person who ultimately is responsible for this is the president and his cabinet. This isn't Elon Musk making a bunch of things. No, he identifies the opportunity, and then the different cabinet secretaries at Interior and Transportation make the decisions. There's clear accountability. Number 2, when you make big, bold decisions, there's going to be mistakes. They're acknowledging that. You just have to fix them quickly. And that's the kind of vision that this effort's bringing to.
Senator Dave McCormick, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
But it wasn't without some trip-ups along the way.